Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of my F123 MyTeam career mode as Brabham Racing. If you did miss the last episode around Great Britain, you missed a good one. Carlos Sainz got the win in the end after a last lap battle between himself, Hamilton and Max Verstappen, all three of them battling it out on the last lap to try and get the win. A red flag also occurred during the middle of the race, which really did end up changing the entire concept of the race as the race started wet and ended dry. And it was also nearly double points finish for ourselves and Wassa, so nearly a double Brabham points finish in the end. And now as we take a look to the performance charts, Red Bull have made big gains again to try and extend their lead, over the rest of the field in the performance gains. And Mercedes and Ferrari are also really close together as well in the second and third positions. And then there's a bit of a gap to Aston Martin and McLaren. McLaren have made big changes, as you can see there. During the course of the season ourselves, we started to plateau a little bit as we now head into our first practice session here at the Dutch Grand Prix. So this is a track that I don't mind going around in the hot laps. I just struggled to find any sort of race pace around this track in the previous games, so it'll be interesting to see in the MyTeam car whereabouts we line up in our pace wise and straight into the race strategy program. So this is where we're going to find out what our true race pace is, and I've now learnt the hard way these curbs will be biting hard. So already taken some floor damage this practice session through the usage of the curbs, so I have to make sure during the race I stay clear of those to try and reduce any chance of getting some damage. Now coming onto the main straight at the end of the race strategy program, we're going to successfully complete it within the first 3 laps, so seems like our race pace is definitely there to start off with. And now straight into fuel saving as well. This is another program that I tend to sometimes struggle with. I can usually get good fuel saving but can never correspond it to a good lap time as well, but this time absolutely nail it first lap on. And to finish off the practice session, we're going to do our final program here, and it is going to be also completed on the first lap, so absolutely nailing this practice session, pretty much nearly a perfect session. And now this far into the season, unfortunately, we do have to take another internal combustion engine, which will put us further back onto the grid, so that's going to be 10 spots back from where we qualify. That's going to throw us back, so hopefully we can have a really good qualifying session to try and make sure that we're not starting last, because generally if you take an engine component, your qualifying is nearly useless. So hopefully we can try and get ourselves around here, considering we've been showing some half decent pace. And now going on to the end of our first flying lap, you may say it's lap 2, but I ended up taking an extra warm-up lap to try and make sure these tyres get into the right window, and it definitely seems to be working. 2 purple sectors and a green sector, so that's going to actually be our 1 flying lap for the session, which was good enough for P10. And there it is, just reminding us that we've got our 10th place grid penalty. So P10 at the moment, that was just based on 1 lap. I could probably go out there, I could have gone faster as well, getting my mind into the zone and just learning what this soft tire is going to do on the track. And now this is Q2. This is our first lap. We missed the apex at turn 10, and so we're actually going to go for a bit of a spin here. Luckily, we managed to keep it out of the wall, but that grass definitely does not provide any grip, so better make sure we keep it on the black stuff, so then we do not make any further mistakes. So we'll have to have another crack. This is the same set of tyres, and also we must have hurt them a bit too much, because now going into the stadium section, just turn 12 and 13, we lock it up and send it a bit too far into the corner and go for a small spin after getting them dirty with the gravel. And now we actually do eventually go out. This is some fresh rubber to try and make sure we actually get a baseline lap in at least, which is only good enough for P12, so definitely need to go back out there again and try and get another lap in. So we're going to use up a few more extra tyres than needed, and I did try to go for another lap on that same set of tyres, but I reckon the soft tyres are only good for the 1 lap around here, as we got it very wrong. And this is us now trying to start our next hot lap. So I just went for the start on straight onto the hot lap rather than do the whole drive out, and there is a lot of traffic out here of everyone trying to get one last lap in. So I really wanted to block off Alonso here, because I didn't want to be that close, because if I backed off, then there was going to be the Ferrari behind me as well. So did a bit of a cheeky block there on Fernando Alonso to make sure we stay ahead of him. But now I do run the risk of down this main straight, him getting the toe, and getting a better lap than me, but also possibly trying to overtake me, as we know that AI aren't the world's smartest drivers when it comes to practice and qualifying. So hopefully he does not send a dive bomb into turn 1. Thankfully he doesn't, so we can continue on with this lap. But he's trying to pull up alongside us and trying to go into turn 3, so we're going to just cut across the nose of him, and hopefully he did back out of it, which thankfully he did. So now we can just kind of get our heads down and just focus on this lap as Carlos Sainz sets the pace in Q2. So, and then Hamilton sets another fastest lap as well, so we really need to make sure that we nail the end of this lap, and we do. We're now 7 tenths off after setting 2 pretty bad first sectors, which will actually put us P8. So a pretty good recovery in the last bit of that lap, so then we can make sure we get into Q3. And having a look here at the story of the season, Oscar Piastri once again finishes in P11. The guy just cannot get any luck. But now, no, forgetting that, it's now onto Q3. So this is going to be our first flying lap here in Q3. 2 green sectors at the moment. Fastest lap goes to Lando Norris as it stands, coming to the line, currently setting P9, and we go second fastest, only a 10th down on Lando Norris. So we've actually got genuine pace here. So now 30 seconds left to go. We're going to have to try and set a lap here, but unfortunately it's nowhere good enough to try and beat Lando Norris, who does get pole position in the end ahead of Hamilton and Sainz. We somehow managed to get P4, so to be honest, I said I like this track, but I wasn't expecting our car to be good for a P4 around here.
Welcome along then to the North Sea coast and to the Zandvoort circuit. We're 25 miles away from Amsterdam for today's Dutch Grand Prix. It's a race the great Jim Clark won on 4 occasions, leading for an astonishing total of 370 laps. Zandvoort circuit has 14 corners, 10 to the right and 4 to the left, with plenty of steep camber and elevation changes to keep our drivers on their toes throughout the 2.6 mile lap. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Lando Norris put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. And Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Sainz, Verstappen, Russell, Bottas, Leclerc, Perez, Fernando Alonso, Oscar Piastri, Ocon, Joe, Stroll, the Rainmaster, Magnussen, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Sonoda, Albon, De Vries, Sargent, and Ayumu Iwasa. With preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track. And joining me again for the race today, Natalie Pinkham. Let's talk about the Rainmaster. As ever, the threat of unreliability is never far away, and indeed they'll be starting out of position today due to power unit component changes. It's going to be a difficult task to move forward from there.
But on the bright side, at least those fresh components can help them maintain the power they need to come through the pack. I expect to see them take a much more aggressive approach today to make up for that compromised start.
And because of that engine penalty that we did get for taking that internal combustion engine, we do end up starting P14. So making it into Q3 ended up proving to be very important for us to make sure that we won't last down in P22. So as we start the formation lap now, we've got a bit of work ahead of us, because I reckon we've got the pace to get in the points, and we've started showing that this car could possibly be very well capable of regular points this season. So a lot of work ahead to try and make sure that we get those points. But again, anything can happen. This track is pretty hard to pass on, so we're going to have to get pretty creative as we now pull into our grid box and we get it absolutely perfect, 0.0. So it didn't fail at this time, as we now head to 5 red lights, and it's away we go. We get a pretty good start. It's not a fantastic start. It's definitely not the best one we've had this season, but it's good enough to get by Lance Stroll, who, considering, did start on the soft tyre. So we're going to be pretty cautious here into turn 1, try and sneak it up on the inside of Ocon, but he ends up just going around the outside of Zhou Guanyu. And those soft tyres are now definitely coming into play as Stroll is trying to get back by us, but we're just going to send it around the outside of at least 2 cars here and try and get the exit on Ocon, which we do. We actually cut back across the front of Zhou to try and make sure that we get to the outside of Ocon, because I reckon we can probably give him a small squeeze to the inside to give us the proper racing line for this. And we do run it a little bit wide, which you can see on the proximity arrow. Ocon did try to have a little bit of a look there, and now look at George Russell, who's managed to get himself up to P5 here off the start. So pretty clean start overall for the entire field. No big incidents from what I could tell. And as we now move further down into the race, this is our lap 2, and we're looking for a move here on Oscar Piastri. We're going to send it very late, and we do make quite a bit of contact, but I did say we have to be very creative here with the overtakes, and I was being held up quite massively by Oscar, because you could see the gap that he's already dropped from Fernando Alonso, and in qualifying trim we were definitely faster than Alonso, so really wanted to make sure that we get by our fellow Patriot very quickly, as they're now heading 3 wide into turn 1. It's Bottas versus Leclerc versus Perez. So 3 cars that we didn't really expect to be battling it out so far this season, and Bottas did another fantastic job in qualifying to get himself that far up the field. And if you didn't notice, there was a battle as well for the lead going to turn 1. It looks like it was Sainz who was getting by, possibly Verstappen, I reckon it may have been, into turn 1. So plenty of battles up and down this field already, as now we are trying to get by Fernando Alonso. So we've actually managed to catch up to the back of this pack pretty quickly, and I'm guessing them going 3 wide ahead of us did hold up Alonso as well. So we're trying to make some moves pretty quickly here to try and get ourselves as far up the field as we can. These medium tyres are definitely not the tyre that we would prefer to be on, but the hard tyre stint's probably not too far away, as this circuit does generally have pretty high tyre degs. So we're now looking to line up a move on Valtteri Bottas, and we send it up the inside into the stadium section, get it nice and done cleanly this time. And so now our eyes will be going on forward to try and get to Sergio Perez. The gap's just over a second, so we probably won't be able to get any DRS off him this lap at least. But our dive bomb on Valtteri Bottas into the stadium section really did slow him up, and as you can see in the background here, he is going to be under attack by Fernando Alonso, and even possibly Oscar Piastri might want to get into this, but it looks like just Alonso is going to be taking advantage of this as he goes down the inside. But I don't think Valtteri is going to try and make this too easy for him, because Bottas will be wanting to try and hold on to these points as long as possible, and he manages to stay around the outside of Fernando to make sure he got the inside for turn 4, so he will live to fight another day. But I don't think it's going to be too long, and it is really only going to be the next lap that Alonso very easily gets by Bottas, and then not too long later it is going to be Piastri as well to get by Bottas. And now Bottas has fallen outside the points, and he's got quite the train behind him of people wanting to get by him. And now back to our POV. We've been really stuck in a little DRS train here with Perez. As we go off the track, we've run wide at turn 9, and so we've only just saved it from having a spin. So we're going to drop a spot to Fernando Alonso, but we're going to maintain our position in front of Oscar Piastri, but he's going to try and get around us while our tyres are quite dirty still. But that is a very costly mistake, and I would almost say that was due to dirty air, because that car just didn't turn in. I was nearly giving it full lock, and yeah, the thing just didn't turn, as now there's a battle between Perez and Leclerc. So this was the battle I was trying to be in, but it was just kind of stuck in a DRS train. It's now Max Verstappen from the lead of the race. He's spun, and the field now has to try and avoid him as he's awkwardly parked. And it's Perez who hits him, and then Leclerc follows in behind him. So I think that's like the top 3 in the championship are now out of this race, and that's good enough to bring out the red flag. A 3-car pile-up down at turn 11. So a very costly mistake by Max Verstappen, who was leading the race, and then of course it had to be Sergio Perez, his teammate, who had to hit him, and then I reckon Leclerc was just a bit unsighted from Perez. So pretty unfortunate incident to happen, but now that means it's going to be another standing start. The team's got us on the hard tyre to go till the end of the race. It's going to be a very long stint, and the tyres are going to be absolutely dead, and we get a really good start. Hamilton had an absolutely shocking start, so did Lando Norris, so we're going to be trying to get around Lando Norris around his outside, and we do. And so that puts us now into P4. So we found ourselves from just being inside the top 10 to now being P4 after this the red flag break. So Fernando Alonso now finds himself up in 2nd, and Carlos Sainz is leading the race. But Carlos will definitely be needing to make another stop, as he's actually started on the soft tyre. So I reckon Ferrari's trying to go for a 2-stop here, not thinking the hard tyre will probably make it to the end. So definitely going to be a tricky situation for Carlos Sainz as we do a quick order check now. So it is Sainz, Alonso, Russell, your top 3. We find ourselves in P4, surprisingly enough, considering we started P14. So we're already up 10 spots, 14 laps into this race. Norris, Hamilton, Piastri. So Piastri's made up a few spots as well. Ocon, Zhou, and Magnussen. So there's a couple of names that you don't expect to see inside the top 10 who have found themselves inside the top 10 after this red flag break. Stroll, Bottas, Gasly, Tsunoda all find themselves just outside the top 10 as well. Hulkenberg, and then the 2 Williams of Albon and Sargent. So Sargent's actually proving to not have too bad of a pace here. He's dropped off a bit from Alex Albon, but I reckon he's been held up being battling with other cars as well. Nick De Vries and then Iwasa find themselves last and second to last. And now on board with George Russell, he's making a move for Fernando Alonso, and that has been made pretty easily. And now we're going to be trying to make a move on Alonso ourselves, hoping that he's going to be held up just slightly, so then we can try and take advantage of Russell putting him offline and possibly dirtying his tyres a bit. But it does not look like that's going to be the case, so we're just going to have to sit tight and wait for our time to try and make a move. And now that DRS has been activated, I reckon going to turn 1 will probably be our best shot. We get a really good exit coming out of the second to last corner, turn 14. So the run through 15 is going to be crucial, and we do get a slight run, but we've been really good under brake, so we're going to send it to the inside of Fernando Alonso, and they're just confirming up on the top left of the screen. Carlos Sainz is indeed on the soft tyre, so he's definitely going to be making another stop here as we're now looking on board with Stroll. So he's going to be making a move on Kevin Magnussen here to try and get himself inside the top 10. Magnussen will also have to make another stop. As you saw there, he's also on a soft tyre. So a couple of teams trying to go for a soft tyre, or like a 2-stop in this last section of the race. But I don't think that's just going to work out. As now Stroll trying to make a move on Zhou, but he's sent it in deep. So now Zhou's going to get back through on the Canadian driver. And I would imagine now these soft tyres that Carlos has got will be starting to go off, and they must be, as he now pulls into the pits from the lead of the race. So now this is the battle for the lead of the race, and just as George Russell takes the lead from Carlos Sainz, we're going to now take the lead from George Russell with a very tidy move down into turn 1. And that's also brought Fernando Alonso right back into this. So we've got a 3-car train here for P1, 2, and 3, and all 3 different manufacturers as well. So this is going to be a really spicy race to see what's going to eventuate here. And Carlos Sainz rejoins the race down in P14, so he's not even going to be in the points at the moment, but he does have 13 laps to try and get back on fresh hard tyres. And now George Russell, he's trying to make a move on us, but we're going to send it around the outside to try and give ourselves the inside turn here for turn 4. So the rest of this race definitely going to be a game of defense for us rather than attack, as Carlos Sainz now makes a move on Yuki Tsunoda to get himself back into the point. So he's made very quick and easy moves on the cars in front of him to try and get himself back to the points, as we are now going onto the second DRS straight, and we get a bit of a snap of oversteer. So these tyres aren't starting to feel too good anymore. They have already now done 13 laps as the race restarted on lap 11, and George Russell ends up getting back by us. But onto the very next lap with the power DRS, we're going to send a very audacious move down the inside and make it stick. So George Russell probably had to do a little bit of evasive action, as I'd say we came in very hot. But now Alonso is going to be trying to get himself into P2 here, but unfortunately just can't quite make it stick. And now this was a move that happened a little bit further back on the field as we were making our move on George Russell. So this is Carlos Sainz now making a move for P9 on Pierre Gasly, identical move to the move on Tsunoda. So he's making very quick headway through this field, as now Hamilton is making a move on Lando Norris. So it's a battle between the Brits, and it looks like Norris is actually going to just keep the car around the outside and get the better exit on Lewis Hamilton to keep his P4 position. And now back to our POV. We're still trying to defend from George Russell here. We run very wide, and you can see all the rubber build-up is now on our tyres, so we're going to have a very little grip for a couple of corners at least, as Valtteri Bottas is out of the session, and we're going to have to send it back down the inside of George Russell. We're going to slow it down a little bit on the apex to try and ruin George's run a bit, which kind of worked, as we've now got a 4/10 gap to him. But now this is just a look at what happened to Valtteri Bottas. Unfortunately, just another engine failure. So the Ferrari power units so far this season haven't seemed to have been the most reliable engine. And that's not what we wanted to hear from Mark. Our MGUH is not looking very good at the moment. So we're definitely feeling the side effects of wear at the moment, as we're struggling to try and keep this car in front of George Russell. There's only a few laps to go. There's only 8 laps remaining this Grand Prix, and we're going to really squeeze George Russell. But unfortunately, Fernando Alonso is right there as well. So Alonso is going to try and make the double overtake for P1, and he briefly does get P1. But they're going to be going side by side. We're going to try and get a tighter exit just to try and improve our exit speed out of here. And George Russell, he's going to get pinched a little bit by Alonso. So Alonso moves up into the lead, and we're going to be trying to make the move around the outside at turn 4 on George Russell, which we successfully do with a little bit of help from Fernando Alonso's slipstream as well. So now George Russell found himself going for a move for the lead to falling all the way back to P3. Now it's our turn to try and get back the lead. So this is going to be a battle right to the end, I reckon. But I do believe that us battling this hard to try and make sure that we're staying with this top 3 is going to be hampering our tyre wear a little bit, as now Carlos Sainz makes a very easy pass on Oscar Piastri. So now this is up for P6, so Carlos is making a lot better progress than I thought he was going to be. But there's only 5 laps remaining, and he's got 3.5 seconds to make up if he wants to try and get to Lando Norris. I reckon that is in P5. And now back to our POV. We've now got the orange tyre icon. So these tyres are definitely going to be falling off a cliff very soon. And now this is very much a mental game now, knowing that the tyres are definitely worn. I try not to look at the tyre wear, because I feel like if I'm looking at the tyre wear, then I start to see, oh, they're wearing off, I'm not going to have any pace, and then my pace starts to drop off. So I try to never look at the tyre wear, because I'm just like, well, if they're still brand new, they're brand new. So I keep pushing as if, but as you can see, it's popped up and they are quite worn. So definitely going to be starting to feel the side effects of the tyre wear, as George Russell has sent it up our inside. So we're doing our best here to try and defend from it. We're going to keep it around the outside and get the better exit somehow with this tyre wear and maintain ahead of it. But this DRS straight's going to be what kills us, I reckon. We've gapped Alonso by a little bit. It's not much, but it's a little bit. And now George Russell, he gets the move done very early. We try to under brakes, try and get back around the outside of him, but just don't have the tyre grip to get it done. So now we've got 2 laps to try and get back by George Russell to make sure that we get another win this season. Remember, we won in Monaco. But on to the end of lap 36, the final lap. George Russell's checked out. Fernando Alonso's right behind us, so we could have a drag race to the line here because the DRS has now already been activated, remember. So we're going to have some. We've got DRS as well, but Alonso's got a really good run and it's going to be super close to the line, but we do just keep that P2 ahead of Fernando Alonso.
Well done to the whole team at Mercedes. Natalie Pinkham, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
I feel consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalise on other people's errors without making many of your own, and that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take the top spot, a well-earned victory for Mercedes.
Wow, what a race that was very intense from behind the wheel to battle with George and Fernando for that win in the end. Unfortunately, we did not get it. We did get the P2, but congrats to George and Mercedes for that well-earned win. That was, yeah, that was a tough fought one. Big issues in the championship though for the top 2. They both did not score any points whatsoever, and Red Bull, currently leading the constructors, did not score any points whatsoever as well. As we now take a look at the race results, George Russell, myself and Alonso was indeed the podium, with Hamilton did end up getting by Lando Norris at the end of the race. So look at that, it was 500ths of a second between myself and Fernando Alonso. Stroll did end up finishing inside the points, so did Oscar Piastri, so that P11 curse is over once more again. But now heading into the Drivers' Championship, this is, find ourselves P8. We're in a very tight championship battle with Fernando Alonso for P7 in the championship. That gap between Hamilton and Leclerc has come down a little bit, with Leclerc not scoring any points. Now in the Constructors' Championship, Red Bull did not score any points. Ferrari had enough points from P6, so that's a little bit of a gap thrown back in, but Mercedes have really crawled back some points, so now they're well and truly back into this battle, as now we're back at the HQ and we've got a Q&A that we're going to be doing. So let's accept this and see what kind of questions we get thrown at us. So for this one, well, there's no answer apart from our own livery. Our livery is amazing, so that was a pretty easy question to answer, but this one now is a little bit more of one that we had to think. But I've gone for cautious, because I reckon if we went too hard in the engine and then lacked aero, then would struggle. If we went too hard in aero and then lacked engine, then we would have struggled. So I reckon if we just went cautious, then we would have been doing all good. And so to use up our activity timeline, we've just gone through some promo and driver training, and now we're going to actually upgrade our fabrication in our chassis department to try and help boost the chassis further into the season, as chassis is probably something that we're lacking quite a bit so far this season, and that is going to be all of the upgrades that we do at the end of this episode. There's not really too much. We didn't score a lot of R&D points in the end, and we're a little bit short on cash after spending a bit on the previous episode. So if you did enjoy this episode, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you at the next event, which is Monza. See ya.